Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Judson Memorial Church. If it is your first time here or you need the reminder of this place, this is a place that has been forever shaped and changed by Rosalind Gnatt. I want that to be said right at the outset of this celebration of her life. My name is Micah, and I have the honor of serving as the senior minister here at Judson, but more importantly today, I am a longtime friend and a longtime fan of Roz, and it is my honor to join you today in this celebration of her life, of her ministry, of her art, of the way that she loved her family and loved her friends. It has been an honor to build this service with her beloved family, so welcome, welcome, welcome. And here at Judson, we have always believed that artists have the potential to serve as our modern-day prophets. They show us where we've been, they show us who we are, and they show us what we can become. And I cannot think of a better example of truly prophetic, creative ministry than our Rosalind. She not only made amazing art as the amazing artist that she was, but she also made an art of pastoring to congregants and to the marginalized. She made an art of loving her family and her friends and her ever-expanding community, even all the way across the pond. And she made an art of using religious tradition and, most importantly, the promises of progressive Christianity to fight for embodied social justice in a world that sorely needs spiritually grounded collective liberation. And I think she would love that right now today, with all that is happening in the country, that we are here in this space trying to embody a different ethic, a different way, something very, very different than we are seeing in so many corners of this country and in this world. Many of you have known Rosalind for far longer than I have, but for the past nearly 15 years, I have looked on admiringly at Rosalind. Roz and I served as community ministers here at Judson. We moved through the oftentimes terrifying road to ordination together. We were even sitting outside the ecclesiastical council meeting that decided whether we moved forward to ordination together. Spoiler alert, she moved on that night. I did not. I was deferred that night. And she had a lot to say about that. But I am a forever fan of her big booming voice, of her generous wisdom sharing from her own life, the ways that she never shied away from calling things out exactly as she saw them. And all of this made it impossible for me to ever think of this place separate from Roz's spirit. So today we will remember Rosalind through some of Rosalind's favorite things: words and music and memories and community. We will tell stories, and we will leave this place with new stories, which means that we will leave this place completely different than we were when we arrived. You have brought your own story and stories about Roz into this place, and we're gonna mix them all up and then take them back out into the world so we can keep telling the stories we held and the stories that we will now hold now that we've been in this place. This is the way that we bear witness to a life and keep that life going and alive. We are making the most authentic sort of choral music today, the kind of music where individual voices join together to co-create a choir of remembrance, and I think that that would delight Roz. So I invite you to settle in now, and let's celebrate through another of Roz's favorite things, collaboration. Rosalind is here because we are here. So I invite you to invite her memory into this space, and I invite you to pray with me in whatever way is comfortable for you. Spirit of song and service, breath of every note sung in joy and liberation, echo of every soul who searches for calling and meaning, may we ground ourselves in this sanctuary of memory and music, where sorrow and gratitude meet in holy harmony. We come today carrying the weight of our grief, but we also come carrying the radiance of our life well sung, the life of our dear Roz, whose glorious voice filled concert halls and whose deep faith changed hearts. May this time together be a balm May it carry the sweetness of her melodies and the strength of her conviction that liberatory love is the most powerful force in the universe. And may the music we build together today carry us as we carry Roz's memory into the rest of our lives. Amen. Now I invite up our first participant to lead us in song.
This piece is a piece by Hildegard von Bingen. Hildegard von Bingen was a German abbess, cleric in the 12th century. Roz was not an abbess by any means. Definitely a German cleric in the 21st century. I may have known this before. Emily informed me that she was a great fan of Hildegard von Bingen. It was probably after several drinks that she had told me that, and that could be why I didn't remember. But it has all worked out very well, especially when you consider that this piece is called Power of Wisdom. And Roz was wise, and it was my great pleasure to share many meals and many laughs with her. O power of wisdom, which circling has encompassed all things that have life, having three wings, of which one flies high, the other exudes from the earth, and the third flies in all directions. Praise be to thee, as befits thee, O wisdom.
Virtus sapientiae quaesicuiens circuisti comprehende omnia in una via habet vitam. Tres alas habens, quarum unum volat, et altera deutera sudat, et tertia unica volat, lasti sit, sicut decet, O sapientia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nkosi Anderson. Let me begin by offering my condolences to Emily, Johanna, your other sister, Manfred, and the entire family. I only recently learned of Rosalind's passing through a conversation I was having with a former classmate of ours, Jen Lindsay. But the news hit me like a punch in the gut. Since that time, there'll be moments where I'll just start thinking about Roz and water will begin to well in my eyes. I am truly heartbroken. Now, I remember being here many years ago for Rosalind's ordination. I want to thank Reverend Boosie and all of you here from the Judson community for hosting today's service. I know that there was a memorial service at the Berkshire in Wiesbaden, Germany, but for those of us on this side of the pond, I do believe, and it is my prayer, that today's service will go a long way towards providing some closure and some healing for those of us here. So thank you very much. Now, as an aside, who gets two separate memorial services in two separate different countries? It's pretty wild, but I'll tell you who. Rosalind Gnatt, the great Rosalind Gnatt does. So Rosalind and I first met as classmates at Union Theological Seminary, where she was studying to get her Master of Divinity. Now, in typical Rosalind fashion, she took that school over by storm. She studied with many of Union's distinguished scholars, including James Cone. She especially enjoyed studying and taking classes with Gary Dorian. The list goes on. She was easily one of the smartest, if not the smartest student in the entire school. She was active in campus politics and activism. Of course, she sang in just about every choir that Union had, gospel choir, seminary choir, you name it. Off campus, she was always down to have a meal at the local Italian restaurant Pasticci. Her favorite meal, of course, being the steamed mushrooms, and she'd wash that down with a giant slice of coconut cake. I'd also be remiss if I didn't say that due to Rosalind's age and being one of the older students at Union, she played the role of like an older sister or a mother for so many of us, and so I just want to recognize that and appreciate that. Now, despite our differences in age, Roz and I became great friends. We had so much fun together over the years. She would use her connections in the opera world to get us into dress rehearsals of Aida at the Met. She'd invite me over to parties where we would hang out with her friends. We'd eat, we'd sing, we'd laugh. Many of you in this room were there. And then she moved on to Germany. But, however, in 2018, that's right, I hear that. It's a time to celebrate, that's right. But in 2018, she actually invited me to come out to Germany and to give a talk. She was organizing this event on racial justice, so I came out there and gave a little talk. Now, of course, she also gave me a tour of Wiesbaden and the surrounding towns. There I met Manfred and so many of her other German friends and colleagues. She even staged this musical performance where she invited the famous mezzo-soprano Andrea Baker and the pianist Rodri Britton to come and perform. And check this out, they even had me participate. I was there, and I was given the title of the theologian, which meant that I just stood there and read a couple of lines from, something that she had written. But, I mean, you can picture the scene. You have these world-class artists there, and then there's little old me just there, reading. But, hey, I look at it as my international on-stage artistic debut. Okay, but I digress. But it was an experience that I'll never forget. And, of course, whenever she would come back to the States and to New York City, we would find time to catch up and to hang out. Now, the greatest thing that I can say about Rosalind is that she loved God. She loved God with all of her heart. Sure, she could converse about theology and ethics on the highest intellectual and abstract levels, but she was also deeply grounded in a practical, tangible faith in Jesus Christ, and this drove her commitment to service and social justice. She was fearless, courageous. She inspired me to be a better person, a better scholar, a better activist, and a better Christian. I draw great comfort knowing that she is now being held in the eternally warm embrace of God. And I do believe that we will see her again one day. I want to leave you with Rosalind's own words that she spoke at a benediction for a service in honor of the former Archbishop of San Salvador and Christian martyr Oscar Romero. The service took place at Union Theological Seminary in 2011. It was sponsored by a group known as the Poverty Initiative. Now they're known as the Cairo Center. And there, Roz said the following: Sisters and brothers, you and I are called to the cross. We are called to be a danger to the powerful who, in their wealth, ignore poverty, tolerate oppression, encourage suppression, engender hatred and divisiveness. Jesus did not say, "Come, observe the cross. Come, comment on the cross." No, Jesus said, "Take up the cross. Take it up. Let us follow our brother Oscar, our brother Martin, our brother Jesus." Sure, the path is not easy. It is not safe. Indeed, the cross is not light. But the company is glorious. So, let us walk together. Amen. Thank you, Roz. Amen.
Rosalind Gnatt by Ken Waldman. Rich in warmth and rich in heart, of course, the finest model of serenity, so in keeping with the true master of divinity. Rich in love, loyalty, joy, rich too in intellect, new opera, banjo, Bible, bargain New York condo listing, 3 daring daughters, 5 darling grandchildren, 1 gallant, gracious husband who now will so grieve his beloved and most special spouse. Sadness transports us. It takes us her way. There she is, forever singing.
Well, I definitely did not practice this, so we'll just go with me on this one. My mother touched each of us in unique ways. She had such a wide and beautiful circle of friends that Kimberly and I grew up surrounded, Emily as well, just later, surrounded by all kinds of people, perspectives, experiences that helped shape who we are today. I'd like to share a few of the ways she left her mark on me. My mother was ahead of her time, not just in her sense of an adventure, but even with technology. She was on Facebook before I was. But where she really shone was in the memories she created with us. She had a way of turning ordinary moments into unforgettable ones. Right on cue there. She took Kimberly and me all over the East Coast, from Vermont, where we built a snowman on the roof of our apartment, to North Carolina, where we spent a summer making flower crowns and reading the entire Chronicles of Narnia series on my granny's porch. We swam in the pool where Cocoon was filmed in Coral Gables, Florida, and in a glowing bioluminescent bay off Vieques Island in Puerto Rico. Kimberly and I played hide and seek in the pipe organ rafters during choir practice here in New York, in the Holy Trinity Church, where Mr. Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters crushed. And one of my favorite memories, though it's a little more recent, still years are going by, was a trip we took to Maine. We went out with a lobster man, and you have to call them lobster man even if they're women, which she was. We learned how to haul up the traps We learned to measure the lobsters to see if they were keepers or we had to throw them back. We boiled them on a small island that had no electricity or running water. It was magical, and it was very much my mom. But one of the most meaningful lessons my mother ever gave me happened when I was just 6, older than this one, younger than that one. She was working in Washington, D.C., managing a doctor's office, and brought Kimberly and me along one day to help organize files, basically keep us entertained with something as she worked. She happened to be working for a Black doctor. Growing up in California, I had not been around many Black people, but coming from a Southern family, I'd always heard harmful ideas about race. I asked her innocently, remember I was 6, "Why are you working for a colored man?" I was hauled quickly into the other room. Without skipping a beat, she looked at me and said, "Because skin color doesn't matter. We are all the same on the inside. You work for the person, not the color of their skin." This was in the early 80s. That moment stuck with me forever. That was who my mother was. She believed deeply in equality and fairness, even when it wasn't popular. She hated the injustice she witnessed growing up in the South. She believed everyone, no matter their race, gender, or sexuality, deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. She was a woman ahead of her times, with an open mind and an open heart. We could all learn something from the way she chose to live. I hope to pass these values, these adventures, and this kind of love on to my son, so he too will have fond memories of his mother, just like I have. This is Faye, everyone. Now we would like to open the mic up to anyone else who would like to share a poem, an adventure, because she had many of those, a song. Anyone is welcome to come on up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony Belov,
I'm Dale Vandersand.
and we sang with Roz many times as the Bond Street Utopian Singing Society.
Which is the vocal arts group in residence at the Merchants House Museum just down the street on East 4th Street. And Roz joined us back in something like 2008 or 2009.
Earlier.
Maybe earlier. She actually was first a realtor for us.
Yes. You mean you sing too?
Yeah, a friend introduced us.
So many adventures, so many stories. The religious side of Roz, sure it was there, but that's not the Roz we knew until much later. I knew a Roz who was deeply serious about music, deeply serious about the world, and had a streak of elfish humor running through her. Am I right? Am I right? She loved to laugh, and we loved to laugh with her.
Or make her laugh.
Or make her laugh, yes. Yes.
Well, you can start that story.
Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead with that story.
Well, I'm a bit of an imp myself, and I sensed a common spirit with Roz, and I used to love playing practical jokes on her, especially during performances. Good sport, but she also didn't realize the joke was being played when it was happening. She just thought something horrible had just occurred. And the example that comes to my mind instantly is the time we were performing at the Merchant's House. We performed elsewhere as well, but this was for a holiday party, I think. And we were up at the top of the grand staircase, and
Not being seen, just being heard
well,
throughout the house. Yeah.
we could be seen. And I don't know what possessed me, but in the back room before the performance, the green room, while we were getting all gussied up and everything, she had foolishly left her music folder sitting there on the table, and I just looked at it, and the devil seized me. And I just opened the book. Every third page, I just took out the sheet of music, turned it upside down, and put it back in. And 3 pages later, I just turned it, and I did this through the entire series of songs we were singing. And we went upstairs, and everything was wonderful. And the first song went really well because it was Deck the Hall. And we knew it inside and out. But then the second song, and she was right in front of me. She was right here. And all of a sudden, I saw her head do this, and she turned it upside down, and okay, she was fine. And then she turned the page, and she had to turn it back again. And this went on for pages and pages until she just turned around and looked at me. I'll never forget that.
But she didn't miss a beat.
Did not miss a beat. No, that's true. And she laughed afterwards so hard.
Yeah, that wonderful laugh of hers. I remember that she would just start slowly with that.
Yeah.
And then it would just grow, so endearing.
What did you want to tell? Oh, the country club story?
I guess that's where we should go next. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we have so many. We
So
performed-
many.
From this, we also worked with Roz during with Ken Waldman too. We would do these performances where Ken would do his folk music performances, but Roz would have us as a trio out of our quartet sing a Christmas program as well as part of it. It was kind of an odd pairing between this kind of classical music Christmas program and then the bluegrass on the side. But it was always a wonderful trip for us to do. And we went to Rome, New York, and Saybrook, Connecticut, Old Saybrook, Connecticut, and Waltham, Massachusetts.
Waltham, Massachusetts, yeah,
Yeah,
a bunch
yeah.
of places, yeah.
And I'm glad, Johanna, that you mentioned Maine, because we went up to the cabin there as well. And what you described, going out with Stephanie, the lobsterman, and we also had that experience, and then took the lobsters. We had 7 lobsters that we brought back onto that island with those little houses, and we had the most beautiful sunset and the most quiet day. It was one of the 10 most perfect days you could imagine, certainly in my life.
Absolutely, one of my 10 best days ever, courtesy of Gnatt.
Yeah, and that experience on
And-
Isleford Island.
Isleford, yeah.
Yeah.
And on the way back, there were no cars allowed on the island, and we had to get back to the port and we had little golf carts or something. And we're chugging along, and Stephanie very patiently was waiting for us. We bought the lobsters from her. We did not expect her to give them to us. And then we hear this singing, of course, and there's this beautiful Romanesque style country church just up from the port. And what's that singing? And it was Shakespeare motets. And of course, the 3 of us,
It was a family reunion, and they all
Yeah.
got together once a year to sing these motets in this church in Isleford, Maine.
and they gathered from everywhere.
Yeah.
And they invited us to join in, naturally. And suddenly we became part of the
that
family.
was the magic of knowing Roz. An adventure would happen no matter what moment that you were with her, especially on a trip like that. On that trip, we had a wonderful time to actually discuss, stories and histories. And she told us one of when she was a new bride, her youngest, the first time she was a bride, and her youngest self. And I don't know who the groom was, but they went to
Some mystery groom.
one of many, one of many. But they went to some country club in, I think it was Georgia, right?
It was a family event, I know that.
But it was filled with the southern jet set, the white gloves and the pearls and everything stereotypical you could imagine. And she was there kind of having to be prim and proper and nervous, but she had some operation, I guess we can say, I think she told us a hemorrhoid operation.
yeah.
And so she had a donut that was inflatable. And she had to have that in order to sit.
I mean, picture this beautiful country club room, all windows and little flowers and vases and everything, china and silver, and Roz decked out, a new bride, basically meeting part of the family.
Trying to fit in,
yeah.
And apparently there was something wrong with the valve on the donut. And so all of a sudden she was getting shorter at the table, but there was an audio accompaniment of how would you put it?
I'm not putting it, but her face when she was telling this story, the total delight of being absolutely and completely embarrassed in front of people that she was trying so hard to impress. And the way she laughed and laughed and laughed. Again, one of my happiest memories ever.
A whoopee cushion couldn't have been funnier.
Yeah.
So,
And that was Roz, our Roz, anyway. And I think I can speak for both of us, I feel that we are both so much the better for having known her, for having worked with her so closely and for so long, for having shared so many laughs and tears and despairing moments as well. Someone I will personally never forget. And she had 3 children that she loved and grandchildren that she adored. And when she went to Germany, I was very happy for her, but very sad for me. Thank you, Roz.
Yeah. Thank you. You're here.
Okay, so I'm Lauren Leader.
I'm
This
Dina
is Dina
Mornoff.
Mornoff. We have not been a duo like this since like the very early 90s. Yeah. I think it was Little Shop of Horrors, 10th grade. So I was not planning to do this, but I was thinking about the years that have gone by and all the ways in which now, all these years later, I realize how much Roz and the Gnatt family shaped who I am and shaped my life. I was 14 when I came to Davenport Street and to the Gnatt household, and Michael and Roz became like another family for me, and I spent many, many, many years in their house. And when it turned out I had this very loud singing voice, in around 17, it was like the junior musical, Dina was director, Roz was the person who sort of stepped up to support me and encourage me and find me a path forward and introduce me to my wonderful, long time music teacher who is here, Michael. And while I did not choose a path in the arts, although I was sure I was going to, well into my 30s, to be clear. In fact, she sent me to Germany, where's Molly, and all the things to, kind of fulfill my dream, which was not meant to be my life's path. But in so many ways, it shaped who I became, that kind of confidence of like taking on something that you love and going for it with all your heart and soul. And I feel deeply grateful for the years that I spent in your house, Michael, and all the love and support that you and Roz gave me in those very critical years. And then Emily came along, much to all of our surprise. Kim was 15 when you were born, 16, I think, right? 1990, right? So December 6th. And then I became Emily's babysitter, and it was just a huge formative part of my life. And to like close the circle, when I was married in 2004, Roz cantored my wedding, sang all the way through it. It was so beautiful. So all of these like very deep connections, and so we will all miss her. But those high school years, the GDS years, Dina, over to you.
My memories are pretty gritty. It's funny, you were talking about the hemorrhoids. And Lauren said TMI, and I thought, no, the woman knew everything about hemorrhoids, like an expert. And what I was thinking was everything I needed expert advice on that I never knew I needed expert advice on, somehow this little voice would jump out and give me an education on something I never knew I needed, and I'm so grateful for. Which cocktails belong in which glasses and when it matters. When to send it back. Which
was her
things,
Jewish side.
Which thing, I mean, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to that. Anyway, but
It's a Jewish side.
which things I should invest in terms of quality and which things don't matter so much. Also, in the world of high school, I returned from a visit to Emory where I got really, really, really drunk, and I had to fly back. As a teenager, my father picked me up at the airport at whatever o'clock in the morning it was to get me to high school, and he was like, "Oh, you're going, you go," and shoved me out the door. And I called up Rosalind. I don't even think I called. I think I just showed up at the house, green and desperate for help. I was like, "Please help, I don't know what to do." She was like, "Drink this, lay down, take a nap. I'm waking you up in 2 hours and we're gonna have a big talk." And she set me straight. She had some really profound advice and then sent me back to school and had a chat with my dad. It was a whole complete event.
It's a special person who takes in stray teenagers. Really, really. There was always room for all of us.
Yeah, so lots of wonderful advice, and the laugh that you mentioned is forever in my head, along with the most wonderful and strange advice.
Hi, I'm Steve Cohn. This is my wife, Sarah Jones. And I am a friend of Roz. I met Roz in the late 90s, which I always think of her as somebody I recently met, and it's partly because Roz was always so fresh and reinventing herself that she always seemed like a new person for discovery in many ways, but I met her. I should start just by saying I promised Emily that I'd be quick and I'd talk about a memory, and I promised myself that I won't say anything that makes people cry. So those are the objectives. But so over the time that I knew her, first she was a real estate broker and helped me find my apartment, although she was interested in selling me something because she had a job to do, and it took me 10 years to buy something. So over the course, we became friends. She was the first person, other than the two of us, that I told that we were having a baby when we did get pregnant and have a baby. And when I first met her, she was a real estate broker. She was also doing costumes at the Met. She also was doing basically anything you want. She would do it well for extra chores because she was trying to support herself in New York, which was very difficult. She made curtains. She made a shower curtain for me. She did all kinds of things. And then over time, she was also, I should say, very importantly to her, she was a mother. And that was always very important and always the driving force. It wasn't between me and her. It was obviously just the most important thing in her life. And then over time, I got to realize that before I met her, she was an opera singer. And before that, or sometime around that, she had 2 children and lived in Connecticut. She had all these different lives. And it has always struck me at how she was so able and interested to constantly evolve. She always saw herself as a work in progress. And I'm sure life was scary and challenging, like it would be, but she never let that stop her from doing things. She really became, so many different things. And that was because she's so smart, and she's so curious, and she just had this inner drive that would move her forward to do all kinds of things that most people wouldn't think, like you're a real estate broker. And then she said, I woke up in this room and I knew I had to go to ministry. And I thought, really? You're a real estate broker, now you're going to divinity school? And then she was a minister. And then she worked in Germany. And then she was married. And, I visited her in Germany. But the memory that I would share, the observation is that she was just so varied. I really admire it. And I admire the bravery with which she faced life. Even though I'm sure she was scared and I'm sure these things were challenging, she just did them. She never said, oh, you know what, that's too scary. She just did it, and she evolved so much over the course of her life. But two things that were really important to her always, that I saw, that are part of the memory that I have, that I cherish the most, although I have many, and many of them were with laughter, was her love of the children, her grandchildren, but also my children and other people's children, and also her love of music. And I remember once she was visiting me from Germany, and I was living in my apartment, and she wanted to just spend the day in the house. My son was 4 years old, and she sat at the table, and she patiently did Lego projects with him, and she had such a gentle manner. He was completely enthralled, and she was enthralled with him. And I sat on the other side, and I was playing Gustav Mahler Lieder on my phone, or my Sony speaker, I can't even remember what it was, which I loved and she loved, but I didn't know what the words meant, but of course she did, because she was an opera singer and she spoke German, and she was so delighted, and she was singing along and translating them for me, and that's how I first got to understand what the words meant. And she would talk to me about, maybe you sing it this way, or maybe you sing it that way, and different styles that different singers use to have different meanings to the same words. So that's the memory that I will always try and keep prominent, although I have so many with Roz, which is what beautiful it was when she was with children and how important they were to her, and similarly with music.
Erica, I'm in Washington, D.C., and I'm Michael and Rosalind's niece, and this is my sister Miriam, also Michael and Rosalind's niece, and we're happy to be here. We both have some things to say.
So I'm both her niece, and we spent lots of memories and family vacations. Sorry. And I'll leave more of that to you. But I have been living in Brooklyn for about 25 years. 13 years ago, I was ready to buy an apartment. I'd been renting, and so you keep it in the family, because you always stay family. And I called up my Aunt Rosalind, and you took 10 years. We spent one day looking at apartments in Midwood. We looked at 4 of them in one day, lots of walking, lots of beautiful houses in Midwood, a bunch of buildings, and she was my realtor for my apartment where I've been living for the last 13 years. When she was in divinity school, well, she had helped me with my German when I was in high school, and she'd call, and there were times that we'd work through some of the Hebrew texts that she was studying. And I'd like to recite the Hebrew prayer for the dead, Kem Alei Rachamim. Kem Alei Rachamim, Shochen B'Amromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Shechina, B'Melot HaKadoshim V'Atarim B'Zohar Harkia Mazhirim, Es Nishmas Ronit Bat Avram Avinu, Shachacha La'oma, Ba'avor Shenadvu Tzedakah Ba'ad Haskarat Nishmata, B'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchasa, L'chein Bov HaRachamim Yastiraha, B'Seter Kanfav La'olamim, V'Yisror B'Tzor Chachayim, Es Nishmata, Adonai hu nachlasa, v'tanuach v'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar amen. You want to say the English?
I'll say the English, and then I have some things to say. I didn't know you could sing. That was beautiful.
Well,
Merciful,
not well.
merciful God who dwells in the higher realms, provide rest under wings of the Shekinah, amongst the holy and pure who shine as brightly as the sky. To the soul of Ronit, Rosalind bat Avraham Avinu, who has gone on to her eternity. For the sake of the charity which we give to commemorate her soul, let her rest be in the Garden of Eden. Hence the merciful one will shade her forever with his wings and will bind her soul in the bonds of life. The Lord is her heritage. May she rest in her resting place in peace. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. I first met Aunt Rosalind. I was probably 9 or 10 years old. At the same time, I met her daughters, Kimberly and Johanna, who's here, and Kimberly, who's with us, when she came to probably a family event with my Uncle Michael. But really, my earliest memory is probably seeing her on stage at a Gilbert and Sullivan production. She was glorious, and she had these huge costumes, and her voice was like bellowing, and she was probably 30. And now I'm 20 years older than that, and she was just this magical person. And all my life, she's really always been there at family events, both singing her silly songs. A lot of silly songs were a lot of fun, and more serious.
And a lot of camp songs because.
And the other thing I always remember is there was a Yiddish song that she introduced to our Passover Seder to the tune of Who Knows One, and Who Knows One in Yiddish, and she had this chorus, and we all still sing it. So I want to just thank you all for being here, and I'm glad I could be here as well and be with you. So thank you.
Roz was our neighbor, and our Emily and our Joe were in middle school together, right? They were the same age, and when I first met Roz, I was mostly making my living playing other people's music, but I started to have songs arrive in my head, which was a pretty scary thing. And I'll never forget one morning, I had a song come to me, and I must have still been in my nightgown, and I needed a witness. I needed somebody to witness this thing that had happened. And I called Roz upstairs, and she came down. I remember both of us being in our nightgowns. I don't know. So it was in the morning, and I sang the song for her, and she said it was a good song, and she encouraged me to keep going. And many hundreds of songs later, I have. And as an artist, I think it's so important when somebody that you like, somebody that you love and respect, bears witness for you. It's just a crucial thing. So I said to Emily, I would like to try to find the song, and I found it. So if you don't mind, I'd like to share it with you. It was inspired by a sermon at my church, Broadway United Church of Christ, uptown, which I go to. So I know it was inspired by a sermon. I don't remember the rest of that part, but I'd like to share it with you. Three-quarters of the time.
Just like my mother, she had very talented friends. Is there anyone else who would like to share? I think we're moving on to Emily and Molly. Oh, please.
So my name is Karen Erickson, and I met Roz somewhere in the early 2000s. I think I met her through my practice, but she's really I'm a chiropractor and craniosacral therapist. I think I was working at the Center for Health and Healing down then. But she was one of those people that I felt like I always knew her, and I'm sure most of you felt that way, that we were, like, she just let me know, like, we're friends, like, we've been friends forever. And there was nothing I could say to her that would surprise her, although she was always curious and accepting of anything. There's no place I couldn't go with her in a conversation. We could go so deep, we could laugh, we could be silly, just every sort of like one of those amazing friends that you could not talk to for a really long time and then reconnect. And it was like nothing had happened. And also, like, an amazing person who had these three beautiful daughters. I only knew Emily, I don't know, somewhere around here. Hi. And watched Emily grow up and, excuse me, be a ballerina. And I watched Roz, like, she came to New York to do music, and then she ended up working as a real estate agent, and she just, like, had so many lives. And then I remember her moving to Miami so Emily could study dance. Like, it was just kind of amazing. Meanwhile, like, having to still pay the rent and, like, make her life function. And she did it with such elegance and grace and kind of a fierceness. And then I remember she told me that she was going to go to Germany, that there was actually, before that, I remember she took you to college. And it was when the pastor at college for the school, like, gave a little benediction. And she said, I sat there in the back row, and I knew that my life was going to change, that that's what I'm supposed to do next. So I went to, she goes, I'm going to go to divinity school. And it was like this whole other incarnation she had. And then I remember when she told me she was going to move to Germany. And of course, to me also, it was a huge loss. Kind of to have that kind of day-to-day girlfriend around. But I was like, well, wait, what? You're going to go to Germany? And she goes, oh, well, you know, I don't know if you know this, but I speak fluent German. I said, I had no idea you speak fluent German. And she went and had this beautiful life there. And I remember my daughter Juliet and I going to visit her one summer, and she brought us to her church, and she sat me on the bench where she fell in love in Germany. And we just had such a beautiful visit. And there's one day in particular that was sort of my beautiful day with Roz, where we went to, in Wiesbaden, there was a wine festival. And it was sort of like Washington Square Park, kind of a park, gigantic park. And we went, and it was completely full of thousands of people. And each winery had a little stand with real glasses, wine glasses. And everyone was like tasting wine, inexpensive, like small glasses of wine. And every single glass got returned to the correct stand. There was no broken glass, no extra glasses left around. Like, it was just such a civilized, beautiful way. And I thought, I am so glad that she lives there. Like, this is like kind of what she deserves, sort of towards the end of her life, like very civilized. People were courteous and loving and respectful, and she got to have sort of an amazing life there. And then about maybe a year and a half ago, she came to New York, and we had this beautiful visit in my office. We just pulled up chairs and sat cross-legged and just talked for 2 hours, and it was just beautiful, and I'm so glad we had the chance to do that. I'll miss you, Roz.
So, someone said about not meeting Roz, or not remembering, you know, And when I met Roz, I felt like I had always known her, literally. And Roz was a magnet. Like, she attracted people to her that were wonderful. And I'm so blessed to know several in the room that I know because of that quality that she had. And I would go teach at their house, and Michael would welcome me, and we'd always sit around the table afterwards and I remember those times so well. So she just was so passionate about life and what was right, and helping people, and doing things right. Whatever it was she did it right. And I feel very honored to have been her friend, and to be here with all of you. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Sally, and I first met Rosalind back in the mid-'80s in Washington. I met her at a performance class. I was starting to sing again after I hadn't sung for a long time. And Rosalind befriended me and encouraged me. And we became very fast friends. Now, one aspect of Rosalind that no one has mentioned yet was that she loved shoes and clothes. And she loved the structural element of shoes and clothes. And I was completely in awe of the fact that she could sew clothing without even a pattern. And one of our favorite activities was to go to shoe stores together. And we'd both sit there next to each other, and the shoes would pile up and pile up. And maybe we'd get one pair of shoes. But the whole idea was just to try them and to look at them. She knew every shoe store on the Upper West Side, in Soho, in the Village, in Washington, at Nordstrom's. And there was one time I remember, I met her when I was pregnant with my son. This was, I guess, 1985. And when my son was 16, he was flying off to France for an exchange program, and he flew out of Kennedy Airport. So Roz insisted on meeting me at the airport and sending him off together. Of course, I was a basket case, crying and everything. Sorry. Anyway, so we get in the taxi, and she said, I know just how to cheer you up. We're going up to the Upper West Side, and I have a new shoe store for you. And one of the last times I saw Rosalind was when she was in DC. I guess it must have been about 6 years ago. And we were saying goodbye, and she paused suddenly, and she said, I was just thinking about something really important that we did together back in the 80s. And I said, what? She said, do you remember those boots we tried on at Nordstrom, and I didn't buy them? And I'll never forget that. Anyway, thank you.
Hello, my name is Molly Thilmore. Okay. I'll say a few things and then we'll do our thing. I met Rosalind in 1992. We were both cast in the opera chorus for the Washington Opera's production of The Flying Dutchman. I was a student at American University, and Rosalind would often use the practice rooms at American. So one day, a mutual acquaintance introduced us, knowing that she and I would be working together soon as opera choristers. Oh, hey, when you come up with me, you can be my friend here. Thank you. At some point, it came up in conversation that I was riding my bicycle to and from opera rehearsal, meaning that I was riding along a hilly, dark road with no sidewalk late at night coming home from the Kennedy Center. When Rosalind heard this, generous and caring as she was, she said, "You're not doing that anymore." And she offered to give me rides home from all of the opera rehearsals so that I could be safely brought home to my apartment. During those car rides, we got to know each other and became very good friends. Maybe about a year and a half later, I was living in a different place, which from one day to the next became a very unsafe environment. I had to quickly find a different living situation and called Rosalind for advice, knowing how wonderfully practical she could be and quick at finding solutions. Her solution to my problem was, again, completely generous. She said, "You're going to come live in our house." She said that since Kimberly was away at Vassar College, I could move into Kimberly's room, and that would give me plenty of time to find a new solution. It turns out I would remain living with Rosalind for a few years and eventually moving into their basement apartment. But for a long while, I was up in the house living with them. And of course, this was only possible because of the generosity also of Michael and Johanna and Kimberly, who allowed me to invade their family space. Emily was still very young. Already then she was magical little cherub, and I spent a lot of time with her, both babysitting and just enjoying her wise spirit, which she already had as a toddler, by the way. These situations, first in how I met Rosalind, when she made sure I got safely home from opera chorus rehearsal, and then when she stepped in to offer me a home when I found myself in an emergency, exemplify Rosalind's generous spirit. And Sally, I'm so glad you mentioned the shoes in Nordstrom, because I have a Nordstrom story too. When I got a call from the Washington Opera to come in and audition for a role, she said, "What are you going to wear?" And I showed her some probably, inexpensive, unfashionable thing I had. And she said, "Molly, we're going to Nordstrom. And we're going to get you a nice dress." So she made sure I was looking nice for my first big audition. She would continue to be such a huge support to me. She and I shared many musical experiences together. Not only were we in the Washington Opera Chorus, but through her, I landed my best church job ever, where she also sang. We also did joint recitals and listened to each other's lessons and practicing. It was with Rosalind that I first visited New York City. I'd never been there before, but we decided we needed to come see Christa Ludwig's farewell tour performance at Carnegie Hall. So we made the trip, and also to have lessons with her new teacher, Michael Warren. Later, when I was first at the Met and my housing fell through, she opened up her home again to me, this time a small one-bedroom apartment, but she didn't mind me sharing the space with her. Those were wonderful times as well. Someone has mentioned her love of quality and doing things right. And I can remember when I stayed with her that time in New York, how each morning she would wake up because there was a specific way to correctly make coffee in this French press. And she would stand there and very carefully, diligently making her coffee while simultaneously doing exercises to stretch her leg muscles and reading from a large book of poetry. But as much as music was a huge part of Rosalind's life and the initial connection that we had, I think if one trait or one word defined Rosalind, it was mother. Rosalind loved her 3 daughters with a devotion that emanated thoughtfulness, extreme care, and a remarkable appreciation for the individual traits that made them all such special, unique people. I never heard Rosalind describe Kimberly, Johanna, or Emily in simple terms. She so loved and respected the nuances of their individual personalities and was so very proud of all three of them. On a different kind of level, and figuratively speaking, of course, Rosalind exhibited motherly warm-heartedness, tireless support, care, and interest in so many people she encountered, including me. Rosalind possessed a formidable intellect with a mind that could as easily expound a deep philosophical issue as it could make a very funny, witty remark. She was proud of her Norwegian heritage and was drawn to the music and characters of Wagner's Nordic operatic heroines, with good reason. I heard Rosalind described as a warrior, and that she was. Despite challenges in her upbringing and physical challenges that would flare up throughout her life, Rosalind tenaciously persevered through all of that and created so many positive, impactful relationships, fun times, artistic performances, and above all, through her came 3 marvelous daughters who are now women of whom she was fiercely and understandably proud. Alongside Edna St. Vincent Millay, I know that E.E. Cummings was one of her favorite poets. One of his most famous quotes is so appropriate for her individualistic spirit and life accomplishments. He wrote, quote, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best day and night to make you like everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting." That is a battle that Rosalind won. To me, Rosalind was an irreplaceable combination of friend, sister, mom, aunt. I have emails between the two of us that were exchanged in some of my most challenging days when I would reach out to her for wisdom and advice. She always guided me in a better direction, and she served as a role model in so many ways. Rosalind had a huge storage unit of poetry and songs in her mind that she could call on to enhance a conversation. I remember one time when I lived with her family in Washington, D.C., she realized I had never heard of Bernstein's Build My House. She had stood there and started to sing it to me. That was classic Rosalind. She knew so much and was always eager to share and make sure others could benefit from the treasure trove of art that she so easily accessed from her own experience. When Emily suggested that I sing Build My House today, it was extremely poignant because not only was this, of course, a favorite song of Rosalind's, but it took me back to that moment in Washington, D.C. so long ago when she spontaneously sang the piece to me to make sure I would know it and share in the enjoyment of the art. Rosalind may no longer be in reach of our direct contact, and I have mourned that and will continue to do so. But someone of such strength of spirit and widespread impact will live on in so many hearts and minds. Though I will never, ever be able to fully express my gratitude for being part of her life, I will hope to honor her through aspiring to her level of courage, creativity, and motherly generosity of spirit.
I'm so grateful to all of you who are here and watching and sending your love and your stories. Can you imagine the brightness of my mom's smile to see us all gathered here under this beautiful roof? Along her life's journey, she made deep connections with all of you extraordinary people. Oh, come here. Much of my early life was shaped by her friendships with all of you. I know she would want us to continue to love deeply, share good food and wine, share music, make each other laugh, and advocate and fight for goodness. So may her memory remind us all to do that. She loved with a fierceness and cared about justice and righteousness as someone who knew in her core what it meant to live without generous love or justice or righteousness. Since her death, I have been repeating the most basic of phrases, but it has felt like my most appropriate prayer for her. May she rest in peace. So, in this spirit, you have some lyrics, and if under your chair, and Molly's gonna play for us, and if we could all join our voices, this song she put at the end of her program of songs of wartime, a real example of how her art carried her through the hard times. So let's sing together.
Roz singing with all of us. Would you please rise in body and or spirit? And I know we have some refreshments in the back for folks, so please keep the storytelling going, but I invite you to pray with me in whatever way is comfortable for you. And now as we prepare to leave this place, may we recommit to carrying these stories and songs and memories as we carry Roz's spirited life into the rest of our lives. May we sing as she did, full-throated, inviting everyone to find their own unique voice. May we pastor as she did, nudging everyone to become themselves through a faith-fueled balance of caring and daring. May we laugh as she did, reminding everyone that there is authentic joy bubbling beneath even the heaviest shadows. And may we always collaborate as she did, not content to simply pursue our own individual visions, but always pouring our own energy into a collective vision that will transform us as it transforms all. Amen. And thank you, Roz.
Ha ha ha.